sure that that could cover, and I wasn't even employed at the time, cover her car insurance, her food, utilities. So we had to make sure that every one of those dollars stretched as much as possible. Now we're in a little bit better shape. I'm, of course, employed and I can help out when I can. But this is something that we got to keep in mind that there's some Americans that this is their sole source of income. So we need to make sure that we protect it. We make it sure that it's there for this generation, but also future generations. The 2100 Act is a great name, but the only person that's going to be around for the 2100 Act probably is my son Hodge and Joe Nagusa's kids. So we want to make sure that it is there for that future generation. So to Representative Larson and to the individuals in this room, we're going to fight every step of the way to make sure that Social Security is there for not only for my mother, but people's parents all over the country. With that, I yield to Annie Custard, the New Dems chair.
Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you. That means that.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Congresswoman Annie Custer. I'm the chair of the New Democrat Coalition. We're nearly 100 of the members of our Democratic caucus, and we support the extension of Social Security. You know, as I've been listening to these stories and people's family, my mother-in-law was living on Social Security, same story, Jimmy. She'd worked her heart out her entire life, but didn't have pension. And I just remember sitting with her and trying to go through the budget. Thank God for federal housing, but $1,000 a month and $12,000 a year. And as John said, you know, if 18,000 is the average, then many are much less than that. You can see the diversity of the Democratic support in our caucus for this and why it's going to make a difference. In my district, 160,000 people. And we're talking about the default and the debt ceiling. I think it sounds very much inside the Beltway, the negotiations. Where are we? Are they at the White House? Are they back here? What's the number? I'm thinking about my constituency. I'm thinking about the Social Security beneficiaries who are the first that will miss a check and the least able to miss that check. They cannot afford the life that they're living unless they get that check. They don't have savings, many of them. If you're living on $12,000 a year, and I think about women of my generation and older who didn't have pension. They worked hard, but they didn't get the wages that they deserved. They were, you know, at best 75 cents on the dollar to the male wages, and many of them far less. Certainly people of color, women of color, the wages were far less. And they weren't in jobs that had retirement savings. They weren't in jobs that had pensions and had a union and had somebody to protect them. So we're all here to support John, who has been tenacious, the definition of perseverance. And I also want to just mention the children, 10,000 children in my district, 21,000 disabled workers in my district, and 123,000 retirees who have worked very, very hard. I don't want them to miss a check, and I want to make sure that Social Security will be here for what we're now calling the Joshua generation. Thank you. And with that, I am going to turn it back to the committee. Bill Prescal, Brian Higgins, and Dan Kildee from the Social Security Subcommittee.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm still waiting for the peace plan from the Vietnam War from these guys across the... I'm still waiting for a health plan that they promised. Waiting on a lot of things. Easy to talk. John, you've been persistent. You've been a real pain in the neck. But you've done the job.
Common ground.
How many things do we start and we don't finish? So I'm thrilled to be with John and Richie and Joe, everybody, to defend Social Security, a benefit that American workers have earned. This is not an entitlement. These birds don't know what the hell they're talking about. Today, the entire American economy is teetering on the edge of destruction by a manufactured crisis. I don't think that's hyperbole. No corner of America is safe if the Republicans blow up our economy. And that starts with Social Security. The average income in my district is a little over than $49,000 in my town of Paterson, New Jersey. Now you put rent together, or you put mortgage together, which you have to eat every day, and general necessities of life. It's a close call here. How about those numbers of people who live on nothing but their Social Security check? So nearly 40% of American seniors would live in poverty without Social Security. Benefits are the lifeblood for family members, children, and surviving spouses. 6 million kids depend on Social Security to eat. Republicans are threatening the lives of every single one of these 66 million Americans. We will not touch Social Security. Well, remember not too many years ago how they tried to privatize it. Change the language a little bit. We're right back where we started from. So Republicans are threatening the lives of every single one of the 66 million Americans. Social Security checks could be halted if we blow up the economy. It is a fact, and it needs to be reported. Today we lay out our roadmap to protect this great program for generations to come. John Larson's Social Security 2100 bill will do that. Today, right now, folks who work here have a gun to the head of Social Security. That's extortion. It's unfair, unjust. It's really a disgrace. We cannot let this piracy stand. And now I'd like to introduce my brother from New York State, Brian Higgins, who was with us from the very beginning. And Brian is a stand-up guy. Brian, join us.
Thank you very much, the member from Paterson, New Jersey, and to John Larson, who has been principled, persistent, and persuasive in this argument. You know, cut this down to politics, because in the end that's what it is. Every single day in America, including today, 10,000 people will turn 65. That's 3,650,000 people every single year. And coincidentally, that is the most active voting demographic in America. 70% of American debt is owned by Americans, including $3 trillion in Social Security. Why would you default on your own people? You don't want America to default, China does. Because our Republican opponents put up a resolution that said those who get paid first will be the foreign debtors, including China. China wants America to default on its debt because American dollar is the go-to currency in the world. They want the yen to be the go-to currency in the world. This is an American First caucus that's promoting what is best for this nation. 65 million people in America now have the benefit, the security of Social Security. Before this was enacted in August of 1935 by President Roosevelt, 50% of the senior population had one guarantee in life. Had one guarantee in life, and that was when they reached senior status, they would live in poverty. We are a better nation than that. And Social Security has proven that that is a lifeblood to people who contribute to our economy. We're a $24 trillion economy, 70% of which is consumption. Can you imagine if we defaulted on our debt and destroyed the Social Security program, what that would do to the general economy. This is serious, serious stuff. It was serious when John started this several years ago. It's even more serious today, and more so this week. With that, Dan Kildee from Michigan.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Brian. I'll be uncharacteristically brief. I had surgery recently, so it hurts when I talk, so it's now a shared experience for all of us. Look, there's a real stark difference between the way we approach these issues and the other side. Just imagine what's happening right now. Republicans are threatening to default and curtail the benefits, Social Security earned benefits, to hardworking Americans in order to exact from the Congress and the White House cuts that would negatively impact those very same Americans. Cuts to veterans' benefits, threatening their Social Security in order to exact cuts to a veteran's benefit, to nutrition support, to housing, to the cost of health care. All in order to facilitate continuing down this path of rewarding people at the very top of the economy. Look at the 2017 tax scam and its predecessors. A policy that they're about to double down on in the coming months, weeks. I mean, this is really a stark contrast between the values, the principles that we support, and what we see as a cynical use of political power in order to threaten people with the loss of essentially earned incomes, benefits, to exact additional cuts that affect those very same people. We take a different approach. Our approach is to fix the problem. Even without the threat to Social Security, we know it needs improvement. And this is why what Mr. Larson has proposed persistently is the solution that we all believe is necessary. And that is to make good on the promise of Social Security, to improve the benefits to those living at or below the poverty line, and to keep the promise that was made and has been modified regularly since 1935 in order to meet the changing needs of the American economy. Social Security is a promise. It's a promise that we all pay into with the expectation that it will be there in a sufficient form in order to make sure that people can live out their lives in dignity. That's what we're here for. Just look at the approach that the other side is taking versus the approach that we take, manifest by this legislation. If the American people take a close look at that, there's no doubt whatsoever which path they will choose. And I'm certainly proud to be a part of this effort, and I thank our chairman, I thank the members, and I especially thank Mr. Larson for his dogged persistence on this issue, and I will stand with him until we get this done. With that, let me now turn to the longest serving woman in the history of the United States Congress, a person who has been a part of this effort from the very beginning, and that's my fellow Midwesterner, Marcy Kaptur.
There you go. Well, first of all, I'm very honored to be in the company of most of the members on our side of the aisle of the Ways and Means Committee who hold a lot of power. I'm not from that committee. So, Congressman Larson, I'm just so grateful to you and to all of your colleagues on the committee, certainly to former chair and ranking member and future chair, Richie Neal, and all of the members of the Ways and Means Committee. I suppose one of the reasons I was invited today, first, our family understands what Social Security means. The granddaughter of immigrants who worked at the worst jobs, first fired, last hired. If it were not for Social Security, they simply could not have existed. And for our parents, the same. A family that benefited through Social Security, which is a compact of trust. Sacred compact of trust, intergenerationally. I want to thank John Larson, Congressman Larson, for your dogged, persistent efforts to move this issue forward. And I think the reason I'm here today is I'm probably the only member here who was present in the Congress in April of 1983, after I was first elected, in order to be a deciding vote, April 1983, of the refinancing of Social Security. And the election of 1982 November was extremely important because this issue, the refinancing of Social Security for the first time in a generation, occurred. At that time, the Speaker of the House was Tip O'Neill. We had a Republican president, Ronald Reagan. There had been a commission to preserve Social Security and Medicare before I became a member of Congress. And in the same way as Congressman Larson has led this effort, we had a member from Florida, Claude Pepper. They called him Red Pepper. And he was a heart and soul Democrat from inside out, just a great guy. And we were able to move to passage Social Security. I've forgotten a lot of the votes I've probably taken in my career. I will never forget that vote. And I just felt that I had helped lift America. At that time, the country was in deep recession. Now we're facing inflation coming out of this pandemic, and we're beginning to heal that through greater employment and more revenues coming into the system, and we have to keep on that course. But I currently represent hundreds of thousands of constituents who absolutely depend on Social Security as their lifeline. And with the cuts that the administration is proposing in Meals on Wheels, the cuts they're proposing for veterans, the cuts they're proposing to, in programs that I have some jurisdiction over, to cut their utility bill assistance, it's going to make life so much more difficult if we cannot prevail. And this particular program truly is a lifeline. Medicare has worked. The American people are living longer. And therefore, we have to replenish the trust funds to make sure that there's enough for Joe's, I guess he left, for his son Joshua, and for all the young people coming up. This is something we do. It shouldn't be difficult. It should be something that is proven and helps to lift all boats. And by the way, from an economic standpoint, to pull the rug out from under Social Security would cause not only harm to individuals, but economic harm in every congressional district in this country. Because Social Security in our district represents billions of dollars a year in spending across the economy for food, for medical services, for the basics of life, really, paying their energy bills. These are not families that squander money. They watch every penny. And I can tell you, we need to reboot Social Security because it's become more expensive for seniors across our country to live. So I'm very honored to be here. We in Ohio, obviously, have a special interest in the windfall elimination provision and the healing of that. That doesn't affect every single state, but it does us. And this particular effort is one that truly will be, I will remember this vote when it happens as well, just as I did in 1983. Now I have the great privilege of introducing just an astounding member, another Great Lakes member from the state of Illinois and the Chicago region, Jan Schakowsky, my sister.
Thank you. I'm Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky. I represent the 9th District of Illinois. So I received a call, my staff did in the office, of a woman absolutely terrified that the Republicans were going to do something that was going to harm her Social Security disability. Janet said she gets $1,500 a month, that's it, to live on. And if she doesn't get that benefit from Social Security disability, she will not be able to pay the rent. She will not be able to get her prescription drugs or to put enough food, nutritious food on the table. She would like to work, by the way, but because of her chronic mental illness, unfortunately, she is unable to work. This is her lifeline. This is what the Republicans are threatening right now. But even beyond that, the Republicans, by the majority, over about 170 of them voted to raise the age of Social Security to 70 years old. The only way to describe that, it is a cut, a serious cut in Social Security benefits. As has been made, the point has been made before, this is not their money. This is the earned money of people who, through every paycheck, through all their sweat equity, have accumulated some security for themselves, but not enough, as John Larson has shown us. We can do better. This is the richest country in the world at the richest moment in history. How dare we be starting to talk, the Republicans talking about reducing in any way Social Security. We need to be able to take care of our people. Also, I want to say it is a family insurance plan. 2 of my grandchildren, when their mother tragically died, were able to get Social Security benefits until they were 18 years old, to continue with their education, to make sure that my son had enough to take care of them properly. That was a benefit from their mother as part of the Social Security program. We should all, as members of Congress, feel obligated to do more to help the people and to assure them of their benefits and to improve those benefits. Women who make a good deal less than men because of historic lower wages, and that's what determines what their Social Security benefit will be helped by this legislation. And so it is time that we roll up our sleeves and say that this precious program that has been successful for so many decades needs to be updated now, and Social Security 2021 is the way that we can do it. I look forward to working with John Larson, all our friends in the Democratic side, to make this happen. Thank you.
Listen, thank you all for joining us. I would like to, and I wanted to thank Chairman Neal again, who is also very modest. I don't think many people realize that he is a product of Social Security, having lost his mother, his father, his grandmother, who was then taking care of him, also passed. And he's here today and understands Social Security thoroughly. For every member of Congress, we are producing these cards. Everyone's going to get their own Social Security card. And we took as an example today to utilize Rich Neal, as I think several have said, the former and will be the future chairman of the committee, and also Jason Smith and his and shows in their districts. And break this down. And I think this is the essential point. These are not bargaining chips. These are people. These are your constituents. This is your mother and father, your brothers, sisters, aunts and uncles, the people you go to church with, the people in your community. This is who depend and rely on Social Security. It is why it's America's #1 insurance program. It is never missed a payment. We used to have to go back to the Great Depression. You only have to go back to 2008, 2009 and the Great Recession and understand that when people's 401ks became a 101k, Social Security never missed a payment. Not a pension payment, not a spousal payment, not dependent coverage or a disability payment. You cannot purchase. I come from an insurance capital of the world. I went to the Aetna school. They talked about the 3 legs on the stool that Mr. Neal did and taught that. And the only one that's never missed a payment and is a guarantee is Social Security. That's why this is so critically important. And yes, Congress has not acted to enhance Social Security in 52 years. As Marcy pointed out, 40 years ago, it did make sure that Social Security could stay in place, but they did so also at that time. Bob Dole God rest his soul, who was a strong advocate, convinced Ronald Reagan, a Republican president, that they should go forward, and Tip O'Neill made sure that Social Security was protected, but they did it by raising the age. The Greenspan Commission, which Robert Ball, who was a participant, said, listen, that commission actually didn't work. It was actually the negotiations between people. We don't need to go behind closed doors. We need an open discussion with the American people. They know and love and appreciate Social Security for what it means to them. It's their very subsistence in their older years. And it's why, as elected members of Congress, it's our responsibility to put this forward. This is nothing the president can do with executive order or that the Supreme Court is going to adjudicate. This is what Congress was elected to do here. And it's a simple thing. If you got a better idea, if you have a better plan, if you got better legislation, bring it forward. But for God's sake, let us vote on it. Let us debate this and let us move forward. This pandemic has only underscored the absolute necessity to act now for so many of our fellow Americans. Don't just look at them as statistics or political bargaining chips. These are the people that make this nation what it is. That's why we feel so strongly in all aspects of our caucus. And I dare say the American people as well. And that's why there's no need to go behind closed doors. Let's have this discussion out in the open. Why? There's only two things you can do. You can either cut benefits or you can enhance the program through revenue increases. We stand here today not just to protect Social Security, but to enhance it. Richard Nixon was president the last time Social Security was enhanced. It was saved and protected 40 years ago in 1983, but it was not enhanced. A lot has changed since 1971. The cost of living alone has changed. We need to act now on behalf of those we love and who have done so much to keep this nation what it is today. The greatest in the world. But it's up to this Congress to act to make sure that the people who made it great do not live in poverty, but are able to lead a life of dignity in the greatest land in the world. Open the questions if you have them. Yes, sir.
Across the aisle, Senator Cassidy last week, he accused both President Biden and former President Trump of, quote, lying to the American people, saying there's not a problem with Social Security in regards to their 2024 platforms. I'm wondering, do you think there needs to be more urgency from both of these presidential candidates?
I commend President Biden for saying that Social Security is a sacred trust. I commend President Biden for acting during the midterms and going out and campaigning. We're working directly with President Biden, especially acknowledging the pay-fors. The president made a pledge. He said, listen, we are not going to have a tax. Now, I would say that Social Security isn't even a tax. It's an insurance premium. It's called FICA, Federal Insurance Contribution. It can't be any clearer. And that contribution is yours. President Biden has called that a sacred trust, but made a pledge and said we should not have any revenues that come forward from people below $400,000. And we keep that pledge with the way that Social Security 2100 pays for this, etc. We are currently awaiting the actuarial report when it comes back as we roll out this bill and are seeking original co-sponsors as we have in the past, and also, frankly, reaching out to our Republicans and saying, look, this idea, this notion of a polycrisis that historians, this has been around for a while, but, you know, since Davos has gained a lot of credence because of everything that's going on simultaneously and in currents and the catastrophic events that they can unfold. And so to understand that is both to also understand how to address that. And here we have in every single congressional district how to address that for the most vulnerable in our life, our elderly and our children. Every congressional district, on average, it's 145,000 Social Security recipients, for some more and some less. You saw there, Chairman Smith's is around 180,000 and Chairman Neal's around 171,000 Social Security recipients. But that's why I commend President Biden for taking that strong position, et cetera, and being an advocate of Social Security. I would commend President Trump for standing up in 2016 and saying Social Security was not an entitlement. And I think you have to give Trump at least some credit for telling the Republicans, are you crazy holding Social Security and Medicare hostage? And they've kind of done the Michael Jackson moonwalk backwards, trying to explain, you know, why all of their legislation, their study committee that calls for 21% across the board cuts still remains out there in print, but they feign an interest in Social Security while at the same time they cut and impact that.
Yeah, how does this bill differ from the bill of the same name from the last Congress?
It differs, it has as many benefit enhancements as the last one, so it's exactly the same in that, but it does have more revenue that's coming in by way of, again, following President Biden's lead by closing the loophole of the FICA loophole that's referred to as the net income investment tax, which has allowed a number of extraordinarily wealthy people to avoid paying FICA taxes. And by doing that, and we're going to get the actuarial assumptions, but the initial take from them, we don't have it in writing, but we will. We'll be talking more in depth about this, are good indications both in terms of extending solvency and also extending benefits as well.
That's the main difference, is the net.
That's correct. But the thing that's changed as well is the urgency is even greater now. I don't honestly know how people can go home and look their constituents in the face and tell them how much they love and support Social Security, but then not either vote or act on it in Congress. And listen, to be completely fair, it's been 50 years. And so that means Democrat and Republican administrations have not enhanced Social Security. But Democrats have fought off the attempts to privatize it and the continued attempts to cut it. And we will continue to fight that, but it needs not only to be fought for and preserved, but it needs to be enhanced. My God, things have changed a lot since 1971. We need to help. Thank you.
Thank you.